Can we make your screen bigger?
So folks, I'm going to be using just a little sort of saucepan to make my rice in, and I'm going to get that started. It's going to take 20 minutes. So I'm going to cook it on really low for 20 minutes. If anyone has questions about rice, because this isn't necessarily written in the recipe, please go ahead and ask, and we'll try to answer your questions. So I boil my water first and then I add rice. When I do jasmine, it's different with basmati. You would boil them both at the same time. Great. So I'm going to get that boiling. And Lynette, you are now a co-host, so you should be able to admit people. Green curry is one of my favorite recipes. It reminds me of home. I grew up with a nanny from Thailand, and we would always have different types of curries, yellow and green mostly, and it's just such a comforting food for me. So I'm so glad we get to make this today. If y'all want, you're more than welcome to add any sort of meat or protein to the dish. Like you could mix in peanuts into your finished product. You could fry up some tofu and put tofu in there. You could do like a chicken, if you want to fry chicken in a little bit of brown sugar and butter or something like that. Those would all make really good additions to this creamy, delicious dish. So a couple people just joined us. We are heating up water to start our rice. That's the first step for us, so that while we're cooking, the rice is cooking and everything can finish up around the same time. Anyone questions about rice cooking before we move on? Wonderful. So I find when cooking a lot of different Asian foods, stir fries, curries, having your veg prepped and ready to go is always great, because all of a sudden your onions are going to be cooked enough and it's time to stick in your garlic. So we're going to get everything pre-cut before we even toss it into a pan. So I'm starting off with 4 cloves of garlic. All of my garlic is pretty medium sized, and we're going to mince that as fine as we can. Just cracking my garlic first, then I'll cut the ends off, and hopefully the skins will peel right off. And you can use a knife too for the more stubborn ones. Go. Can everyone see my cutting board pretty well on their screen? You can give me a thumbs up if you can see it well. Okay. Great. Is this anyone's first time making a curry? First time, awesome, that's really exciting.
How much garlic did you say?
I'm using 4 cloves of garlic. If you're not a big garlic person, it's not going to destroy anything if you use less of it. It's just an added flavor. The curry paste that we're using is going to have some garlic in it as well. To me, it just makes everything better, so I'm using 4. But if you really, you know, a lot of people have trouble digesting it or don't love it, you don't have to use as much, or you don't have to use any. And I'm going to start mincing my garlic down. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the smaller and the more surface area you have, the more spread out that garlic flavor is going to be into your curry. So curries are just words, you know, you can find them in many cultures. especially in Southeast Asia, but they're just stews with lots of vegetables in them and sometimes meats. And in Thailand and in quite a few other places, you can you could use meat in your curries. You could use coconut milk as the base of those curries. And sometimes curries don't have coconut milk in it. But it's commonly, I think, how we've had curry a lot in the United States. And just so you guys know, I know most people know this, but these videos are recorded for you to go back and use if you want. Share them with your friends. They are on our YouTube page, Just Roots YouTube. So if you ever want to see any of our old classes, we've done quite a few recipes and we'll continue to build this bank for a long time.
Well, that's great to know.
Yeah, I know that now. Should have said it before. I always keep bowls or something that I would like to use to put my chopped up stuff to keep my chopping block clear. So feel free to get out little dishes or something. The only downside is it makes more dishes for you to have to do later. But hopefully if you're cooking, someone else is cleaning. I think, did Patty write a message in the chat? I didn't catch it. Patty used to make chicken curry in college. Well, I mean, I would love to try your chicken curry. I am a lover of all things curry. I should also mention that there's a number of different ways to infuse spices in curry. And if you were making green curry from scratch, you would fry all your spices, your lemongrass, your chilies, all of that would get fried into oil on your pan instead of us just using a paste, but it's really nice, easy, and tastes delicious to use a paste as well. There's international markets like Transworld Food in Hadley that has giant tubs of curry pastes of all different kinds, and it's cheap. The little brand we got is a little bit expensive, but you can definitely find those really affordable or order them online if you like it a lot. So once your water is boiling, you can go ahead and add your rice. So mine's just about there. I'm doing a cup of rice. I always put in a tiny pinch of salt, a little dash of olive oil, like a half teaspoon of olive oil or whatever oil you like to use. When I'm cooking rice, I give it one stir and then I close it up, put it on super low and don't touch it for a while. A little bit of olive oil. A pinch of salt. And then I'll give it a quick stir. Make sure that salt and olive oil is incorporated throughout. It's going on low. Great. Okay, so now if I'm not moving too fast, which I hope I am not, I'm going to move on to my onion. So I have a really big onion. I can't remember, do you guys have kind of smaller than this in your kits? They're a little bit smaller.
Oh, that's
you probably only need about half of this size onion. For reference, that's how it fits, and I have small hands. So you can save the other half for whatever you please. And the onion, you can dice it, you can mince it, you can leave it in strips. It's however you like to eat your onion when it's in a stew. I'm going to probably dice it, but I've had curries that have, you know, strips of onion as if I were to cut like this and just leave it like that. Just use your intuition and use what you like best. rough chop. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. We just want them all relatively the same size so they cook at the same time. And I keep my onions separate from the garlic. I wouldn't put them on the same plate unless you have plenty of room. And that's because, I'm gonna start crying here, but that's, man, that's intense. We start the onion before the garlic. The garlic would burn if we started them at the same time. I'm gonna rinse my knife and cutting board so I don't continue to cry on our Zoom. That's a good idea, Patty, adding frozen shrimp that are already cooked. That's going to be delicious. I wish I had some myself. Okay. And then we can start to prep the rest of our veggies that you have. So either summer squash or zucchini. I'm not sure which one y'all got. I got a summer squash. And then some pepper. I have 2 tiny red peppers from the garden, so I'm going to make these, do both of them. And then I have a head of broccoli that I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use about this much for the recipe. Sorry, there's definitely some tearing happening on my half. That was a strong onion. So, I always like to point this out to people that I feel like food waste in America is one of like the saddest things to me because there's so many people who don't have access to food, but and there's so much food that's produced and wasted. And some of that is even in our own homes. Most of it is not, most of it's at grocery stores, but this whole part of the broccoli is edible. And if you grow broccoli at home, all of the leaves are edible too. They're just like collard greens. I sometimes do a light shave of if the stem is really woody, and you can cook that, it just needs to cook for longer. So I'm not gonna use this today, but if I was doing a bit of stir frying, I would cut this up after maybe peeling it, and it's yummy. It's very tender. So my goal with the broccoli right now is just to cut it into smaller pieces that are what I call stir fry size. Something like this. And so here's what I mean. This is all perfectly good and will cook around the same time as your heads of broccoli. And this part I would shave down if you wanted to reuse those. Could also be good chicken food if you have chickens. And so you can break them up by hand if you want to get them into smaller pieces, or you can cut them. Welcome, I think 3 people have just joined us. Welcome to Green Curry Cooking Day. We're excited to have you here. With this recipe, feel free to add any added proteins you'd like to the mix. And we have started our rice already, and we're now moving up to prep all of our veggies. You can put the broccoli in the same bowl as the rest of the vegetables, not the onion and garlic, because we're gonna toss those in at the same time.
You said you can't see? What is it, the screen?
Okay, so I got my broccoli ready. I'll show you about how much it is. And I'm gonna start my peppers. I learned this really fun trick with peppers that kids love. If you ever have time to do it, you can fillet a pepper almost by taking like the underside skin out and slice it really thin. And if you put it in ice water, it makes these beautiful little curly cues, like pig's tails almost. It's really adorable. Makes a beautiful garnish.
Is that cold water? Hot water?
Cold water, ice cold water. So what I would do is I would put them in the fridge with a few cubes of ice in it. And it was super yummy. So the pepper, I am gonna leave a little bit bigger. I'm gonna leave it chunk sizes, kind of like this. These are 2 different ones. I like to leave the pepper bigger because then it still has a crunch when you bite into it. And we don't want our vegetables super overcooked. If you wanted to go down to a little bit more bite size, that's fine too. And I'm gonna add that to the broccoli bowl.
I think my household got into my bag and I don't have these vegetables. I think they already ate them.
Oh no.
I found frozen peppers. I think I'll put those in.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad you have an alternative to use. I'm glad that your household is eating fruits and vegetables, though. That's pretty nice.
Can we shop the peas?
All right, finishing up with my pepper. Last step is going to be my summer squash or zucchini. We're gonna cut them the same way. Summer squash generally takes a minute longer to cook than zucchini, just so everyone knows, but for this recipe, it won't be any different. Cut my ends off.
Okay.
I like to cut it in half so I can then stand it up because we're gonna be doing medallions. And they're, I don't know, 1/4 inch thick. If you want them a little smaller, you can cut them in half again if it's on the larger side of your squash or zucchini.
Moons. She's
I
doing
think
moons.
I'll keep them as half moons.
See what she doing? This is her hands. So look at that one.
The thicker the chunks are, obviously, the crunchier they'll be when your curry is finished. So just keep that in mind. If you tend to like your vegetables really crunchy, keep them thicker. If you like them soft, you can cut them pretty thin. And stop me if I'm going too fast. Let me know if you have questions or if you have ideas of things you would add to this dish. I have to say, when I would eat out at Thai restaurants, my favorite way to get it was with a white fish. And I just think the green curry pairs so well with white fish. And that could be haddock, cod, whatever's available, tilapia even.
We're gonna put in the peas that we got from the pick your own.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you could definitely.
We're just gonna snap them in half, like kind of like that. So they're like snow peas, and we're just gonna stick them in like as extra vegetables.
That's such a good idea. I always like to peel off each side and pull that little like vein. If you like, yeah, give it a little pinch and pull. It's so fun to do that. And then it just tastes so much better. And then did you all get basil in your boxes? I think so. I'm gonna rough chop my herbs. With rough chop, I wanna still have visible pieces of the herb. So it's just something like this. Something I've talked about when we've made other recipes before with basil is that these stems are edible. You can use them and they are really good. What I suggest is you cut them really small when you get to the stem so they cook down. Another thing is if you have a lot of basil, save your stems and put them in a jar of apple cider vinegar, and you're gonna have delicious, like ready to pair salad dressing that's basil infused. It's really yummy.
Oh, nice, a little bit bigger. So maybe like this big.
All right, so I've got my onion chopped, my basil chopped. I've got my broccoli, my squash, my peppers.
I
So
have an
the last
herb
thing I'm going to
cluster.
do, just to get ready for our cooking adventures, is I'm going to measure out 2 tablespoons, and we're going to do some lime juice. And if you have pre-squeezed limes, that's fine too. Lime juice is not absolutely necessary. I think it really brings out some of the flavors of the dish when you get to use lime. So you're going to put that in a smaller bowl. Give it a squeeze.
Put it this way so you can squeeze. Yep.
So you can measure if you'd like, but generally I find 1 lime, so that was half of a lime, is equal to 1 tablespoon. So 1 lime equals 2, if it's nice and juicy. If it's not feeling juicy, you might want to add a little more.
Before you cut it.
And sometimes I use my fingers if it's a hard lime and I get in there. If you have a cut, I apologize. It's going to be the most painful thing that ever happened to you.
Make a little squeeze.
Get my hand to the face.
If not, take a fork.
Okay, folks, so now we are starting the cooking process. The first thing we're going to do is measure out 2 tablespoons of olive oil, if that's preferred oil that you use. I'm using a let me see if you can see it better. A cast iron deep dish. You don't have to do that. Any pan that has sides that go up is great. And think about how much vegetable you have. It's going to cook down, but 2 cans of coconut milk and that much vegetable is quite a bit. So you want something that can contain it all. But we're not looking to get like a great flat fry on anything. So it's really just, we're starting to let the vegetables sweat, and then we're going to add our coconut milk. So I'm doing 2 tablespoons of olive oil. A little short.
Laura says hurricane with cilantro. How much do I use?
If using cilantro,
Hurricane.
so if you're using cilantro, if you like cilantro, I would use 3 sprigs. So that would be 3 different stems, and rough chop the herbs from that. If you're worried that you might not like cilantro, then maybe just use 1 and try it as a garnish on the top. But if you like it, then use all 3. For me, there's never enough herbs, so I'm gonna put my hand, oh good, well great. You can use as much as you like then. I don't think it would overpower the dish. I'm gonna put my pan on medium, heating up that oil, and I've got my onion chopped, ready to go. That's gonna be the first thing in there. We're gonna, you kind of constantly stir it until the onion becomes translucent, and then we'll add our garlic. Folks, go ahead, sorry. Someone have a question? No? Great. So let your oil heat up.
Here.
Yeah.
Heat up onions.
Everyone doing okay so far? Great. All right, so my oil is probably good to go. I'm gonna scoop in all of my onion. I hear that slight sizzling happening already. I'm gonna make sure that I give it a good stir in that oil. On medium heat on an electric stove, it's probably the same with the gas stove. Medium seems good to me. while your onion is starting to cook really quickly, we're gonna get together half of a cup of your coconut milk. I highly suggest giving it a nice shake because the fat tends to settle on the top. Another hint, if you use coconut oil at home or coconut milk at home for any other reason, you can make whipped cream from it. Stick a jar of coconut milk in the fridge. The fat rises to the top very clearly, and you can actually scoop the fat off the top and blend it by hand or with a blender with some sugar, like confectioner sugar, and it makes really good vegan or dairy-free whipped cream, even for people who like dairy. So if you're starting to sizzle, give her a stir. Right, and I'm measuring half of a cup of my coconut milk. Very thick. Okay, I'm at half cup.
Did you say half a cup of coconut milk?
Just half a cup for now. We're gonna use the rest, but for now we're using half of a cup.
Okay.
I'm gonna clean off my measuring spoons. Okay, I'm gonna do 2 teaspoons of sugar. You can use maple syrup, you can use honey, you can use unrefined brown sugar, you can use white sugar, you can use palm sugar, which is what's traditionally used. Palm sugar, you have to kind of grate yourself. It's really delicious though. And I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of that sugar. Into my coconut milk. Probably would be very delicious on its own. Ending my stirring. Things are starting to look translucent, but not quite yet. If you ever want to slow down what you're cooking to give yourself a little more time for prep, move it to the outsides of the pan. I'm sure you already know that, but something I learned along the way. Okay, so we have our 2 teaspoons of lime juice. We have our sugar that's inside of our coconut. And we are going to put soy sauce in here too. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. I'm using tamari, I'm gluten-free. Regular soy sauce is fine. If you don't have soy sauce, things that could work as a substitute would be like liquid aminos. And if you have fish sauce at home, that is often traditionally used in curries. Fish sauce is delicious, but a little bit funky, fermented fish liquid used in stir fries and curries and stuff like that. You can also get that at most grocery stores and international food markets. Okay, so I've got right here my half a cup of sugar, or coconut milk, sorry. Teaspoons of sugar. I have 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, and I am going to mix in the lime that we already juiced. These are the main flavor profiles in our curry, next to the curry paste, of course. And I'm going to stir that up a little bit. Beautiful. It looks like a creamy coffee now. And we are going to put in our garlic. Your onion should be looking almost translucent. And I'm going to wait 1 more, probably 30 more seconds before I add my garlic. I'm going to take this time to open this very difficult to open green curry paste. Great. Okay. And my onions look good. Time to add the garlic. if your stuff is sticking to the bottom of the pan, something you can always do is add a tiny bit more oil. Just a tiny bit though, it goes a long way. Okay, so we'll give that about 30 seconds. And if you are where I am, I'm now going to use 3 tablespoons of my green curry paste. You may add 4 after we add the rest of the coconut milk, but we start small and add on if we need to. So this part I really suggest doing is you're heating the green curry paste up in the frying pan before you add the milk. And it's just horrible if you didn't do that, but I think having that oil heating these spices makes a big difference. So I'm going to start with 3. And at this point, you should still be on medium heat. Here's 2. I'm using a knife to kind of make sure that I'm getting this measurement right. All right, and there's 3, and now I get to stir. Make sure you can see. Okay, so you should be smelling all those spices, the lemongrass, the allspice, very fragrant. And it's still gonna be a little clumpy, and that's okay. Just keep moving it around. It'll slowly bake apart. And I'm gonna go ahead and toss all my veggies in to the mix. Stir them up. Make sure to get all the stuff off the side. Beautiful color. If you were adding raw meat, you would start with the meat being cooked in the curry paste and then add your veggies. Okay, once your spice mix or the green curry paste is kind of spread evenly throughout, we're gonna take our blended mix, make sure it's mixed up again. That coconut milk mixed with the soy sauce and sugar, we're gonna pour that over. And we're gonna reduce the heat. I'm putting mine to 3, which is a halfway in between low and medium setting on the stove top. And I'm gonna give it a stir. Okay. And now there's no rush because nothing's burning anymore. We can get the rest of our coconut milk ready. You can pour all 2 cans in there. I'm just sopping up the rest of my soy sauce that didn't get in the pan by mixing it with the new coconut milk. How pretty. And I'm gonna open up my second can. And now is a good time to pause and see how everyone's doing. Okay, wonderful. So a lot of times when I'm cooking curry, which I do it a lot, quite a bit, I look at the color before, and taste is one of the big things, but the color should also tell you what you need more of. So right now mine is looking, I'm going to show it to you in a second. It's a little bit pale, but to me, I shouldn't have been stirring with this. Look what happened. Pepper stuck in it. There it goes. It's a little bit pale, but we're probably going to add our third tablespoon of that curry in. Just going to show you what that looks like. So my veggies are covered. It's just tilted forward. It's a little bit, it's a creamy green color. So I probably will add some more, but I'm going to let it cook for a while before I do. And the important thing here is that that curry is becoming part of the coconut milk. And those two are basically, I like to think about it as the flavors are interlocking through the cooking process. So we're going to let it cook down for a while. And go ahead. Jeanette, did you have a question?
Did you bring it to a boil? Yes, the recipe says, did you bring it to a boil and then turn it down? Did you do that?
Mine was boiling when I put it in, but yeah, you definitely want to get it to a boil and then you turn it down low.
Okay, thank you.
I'm using a cast iron, so it stays pretty hot quite a bit. Thank you for that reminder. And so now this is just going to heat and simmer. So simmering is just light little bubbles, not boiling, but like kind of, you know, making a noise like, and that's going to happen for 10 to 15 minutes. And meanwhile, you may want to check your rice because that should be getting close to done.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite there yet. And so you're going to add your basil or cilantro. Yes, we added more coconut milk, Dave. I put all of mine in there. I've got two full containers of coconut milk. So a good garnish for this dish is, of course, your basil or cilantro. And so what I like to do is I will put a tiny bit on top, fresh, but in the last few minutes of cooking is when I like to add my basil. So it does get a little bit soft and gets integrated into the coconut milk. But you could just add it all as a garnish if you want on top. And also using a little wedge of lime or something like that to give it a little fresh citrus. Now, what I want to take a little more time on is figuring out what to add if it's not tasting right to you. So a lot of times I've made curries that are way too spicy. I've made curries that are way too salty. I've made curries that are way too sweet. I've made curries that have way too much of the flavoring spices. And so there's always ways to balance it out. So if next time you're doing this, you're not using a recipe because you think you want to try it out. Does anyone know what you might use if your curry was too spicy?
I might use some dairy or starch.
Yeah, dairy or starch. Starch could definitely thicken it up quite a bit. So just be mindful of that. But yeah, dairy or more coconut milk could work too. Those, the molecules in milk and coconut milk are going to bind to that heat. And of course, spreading the heat out makes it good too. If you use too much salt, I would probably say the same thing, add more liquid. If it tastes too sweet, you can balance that with a little bit of acid, and you can balance that with a little bit of salt. So I'm going to taste mine, see how it is, and decide if I want to add more seasoning, more sugar, something like that. Everyone has a little bit different tastes, and you know what you like the best. So mine, I'm definitely only going to add a third. It tastes really good already, but I'm going to add a third tablespoon of the green curry paste. And another part of that being that the vegetables, we put them in raw. They weren't heavily cooked. So we do want them to be crunchy and not heavily cooked, but they're going to release some water. They're going to release more liquid into the curry. So I'm going to want to make sure that I can balance that. Yeah. One of my favorite things to add to a curry dish is a boiled egg, a like 8-minute boiled egg so it's still soft on the inside. Peel it, cut it in half, and put it on top of the curry dish, and it's just incredible. I'm gonna definitely make sure to get that curry clump mixed in so that we don't bite into a hunk of curry paste. That would not be fun.
One more stir. I'll taste it.
Some other really good additions. Well, some of my favorite vegetables to put in green curry is green beans, which are going to be available pretty soon locally here, if you want to try the recipe again, and eggplant. And I've talked about this a bunch, but if you soak the eggplant for like 40 minutes in coconut milk, the same milk that you're going to use for your curry, you will have the most buttery, amazing eggplant that you've ever tasted. It's just a great tip. Unfortunately, we didn't get this one done in time that we can all taste it together, although some people might be ready to taste before the class is over in 10 minutes. But I'm sure that you will enjoy it with with whoever you are, with yourself or with your people. And I hope that you can recreate it for others some other time. I'm checking my rice now because I think it should be almost ready. Yep, looks good to me. So I'm gonna let that, take it off heat and let it sit. I'm going to scroll through and see how everyone's doing. Great. And while you're still cooking, you can drown me out if you're concentrating, hopefully. But we wanted to check in with everyone and have, oh good, I'm so glad, tasting good. We want to let you know that these classes are obviously going to continue to happen. We love having them, but what we really love is your suggestions for what the meal is going to be. And right now we're in the heat of summer and we have so many crops available at Just Fruits, and we, you know, there's so much we could work with and so much we can do with our local fruits and vegetables. So filling out that survey for us, it just takes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, means the world, because we can keep you happy coming to these classes because we're doing recipes that challenge you. We also get to hear your feedback of how I can improve and how we can make this a better class for everyone. And it'd just be great if you could share with us either here right now on Zoom or through the feedback that you'll get sent to your email. If you could share with us ideas, things we can improve on, things that you like even, that's super helpful for us. Oh, Lynette, you have a friend visiting.
Yes, she's here. Say hi.
And folks, feel free to invite the whole family. We have some folks who join our cooking classes, and everyone's cutting and chopping and learning kitchen skills together, and it's lovely. One thing to know, I've done this before too, where the coconut milk starts frothing, not bubbling, frothing. You got to turn that heat way down. You're going to lose a lot of the water in your dish that you don't want to lose. If it's ever tasting too coconutty, and you can use chicken broth. A lot of people make curry with chicken broth if they don't want it to be as thick. So you do 1 can of coconut milk, 1 can of chicken broth. But green curries are usually very thick. They're like the stew of curry versus a soup of curry. Everyone's doing okay?
I want to thank you. I have been trying to figure out how to cook curry for years and years. And now I finally know, and it's delicious. Thank you so much for showing me how to cook that.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. And there's so many ways to do it, and I'm sure you'll find new ways too. But I think one of the key things is letting your curry paste sort of simmer in your oil before putting it in. I think it really brings the flavors out in that paste. And it's one of the something I learned working in other kitchens is putting your spices in hot oil. I was used to putting on all my vegetables and then spicing, but I think it's a great thing to hit the oil with the spice first and then mix your vegetables in. It really helps the fire. It's just like when you put something on a grill, it tastes better. I think flavors come out a lot more when they're introduced to the fire and to the heat. If you'd like your veggies a little more cooked, you may want to leave it on a little bit longer. For me, the balance of the crunch of the curry is really all about having fresh veggies in it. Pretty good. I'm gonna leave it on for another minute. The broccoli wasn't as tender as I wanted, but it was good. Use salt and pepper to taste at the very end. If you want it to be a little spicier, red pepper.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And don't forget, you still haven't brought in the flavor of your basil or cilantro yet. And that's gonna add just another complexity to the dish.
Here you go.
I'm using the hot stuff, Thai chili flakes, but red pepper is great too.
We're gonna use a little bit of chili oil.
Oh, we sell such a good chili oil at our farm stand. It's made locally and it's incredible. At the Justard's farm stand, by the way. I'm sure you made that, but...
Yeah.
I think I have like 2 or 3 minutes left, so I'm gonna throw in my basil. It's time for me.
Do you stir it? It looks so good. Good job.
I somehow lost your arrow. Oh, there it is. No?
You got me back?
Luce, it was nice to see you. I'm right next door.
Jeanette.
Yeah.
Oh.
Can I just
All right.
If you have already served up your curry or you're about to, I'd love to see people. Also send us pics if it looks super pretty. We love to see.
We probably can get our friends.
Thanks for coming. I love to see people plate their dish, but sometimes I don't like it. But I'll be here.
We're plating. We're plating. No, for this. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Brooke. I'm no kind of cook. I'm not much of a cook, so thank you.
We did great. Thank you. It was yummy.
Send us a message if you have any recipe ideas. We'd love to see it.
Okie doke. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you next time, I hope.
She wants to see you play it.
Oh.
Without.
And so if you were to do this with yellow curry paste, Massaman curry paste, red curry, you could follow the same directions, switch up the veggies a little bit if you'd like, but now you know how to make 6 different curries as long as you get the paste, which is pretty cool. Impress all your friends with so many curries. And then there's Japanese curries too. They have those at the international market, little packets ready to go. Right, I think I'm ready to plate too. Oh, one of my favorite things to do, it's a dorky thing, but I love to scoop my rice into a big ladle and then flip it upside down and it's in a perfect little circle. Beautiful.
Oh, you burnt your tongue.
What did you say?
We have a burnt tongue, but it's delicious.
Oh, well, I'm so glad it's good. All right.
Is it done? Yeah, so you scoop it up over on top.
And this stores super well. Once it's cooled down to room temp, stick it. You probably have plenty extra. There's a lot in there. So get it at room temp and stick it in the fridge and you have lunch tomorrow or dinner tomorrow night. Sometimes I eat it for breakfast too. All right, folks. Well, if anyone has questions, please do ask now, ask via email. We are resources. If you're ever confused about what to do with a specific vegetable, please just reach out to us. Give us a call. We love talking about cooking and we love talking about vegetables, especially local ones. So.
Oops, it fell. Yay.
Oh, that looks so beautiful.
Yay. Good job, Sarah.
Nice work, Dave.
You did a good job.
Oh yeah, you have mine too. Doesn't look as pretty as Dave's, but it looks pretty good. I'm getting hungry for sure. All right, folks. Well, please come back again. So glad to have you. Enjoy your curry. Make it again. Try it with red curry paste. Hope you have a wonderful evening and you get the last little bit of sunshine we got going on today. Thanks again for sharing your time and energy with me tonight, okay? All right. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.